Okay, now the second paragraph. Therefore, the soldier must have a full understanding for the necessity of a severe but just revenge on subhuman Jewry. Again, this idea that the enemies are not fully human, and that they need to be eliminated, killed with all the ferocity that the German soldier could muster up in his heart. And so the army also has another purpose, the annihilation of revolts in the hinterlands, which has been caused by folks that are Jewish. Again, this idea of victimization, that if you're German, you're under constant attack by folks that are Jewish. Um, so the next line is also interesting. The combating of the enemy behind the front line is still not being taken seriously enough. What I talked about when I began this series of podcasts, that there are these huge pockets behind the front line because the German army just isn't large enough, and the Soviet territory is just so enormous that Germany just can't completely control all the areas of the Soviet Union it has captured. So again, if you looked at a map, it would show very tidy that the Germans took all of like Belarus, for instance. But the reality on the ground was very different because there's huge pockets of resistance behind the front lines, which of course the Germans attacked with incredible savagery. Um, but this is a big headache for the Germans and something that they had not planned for. Interesting line, treacherous, cruel partisans. And of course, these are the folks fighting behind the front lines, and unnatural women. Very interesting choice of words given the reading that we had this week, that any woman that fighting the Nazis are somehow unnatural. And then, of course, need to be dealt with in a very vicious and cruel and heartless way. They're not women, they're unnatural women. And they are part of the group of people that German soldiers have to be avengers about and to eliminate and to take care of. Let's see, next line, rather the next paragraph, the feeding of natives and prisoners of war who are not working for the armed forces from army kitchens is equally misunderstood humanitarian act, as is the giving of cigarettes and bread. And what he's saying here is, look, folks in Germany are suffering great sacrifices, which actually was not true at all. The Germans were doing great, in part because they imported all the slave labor from the Soviet Union and other parts of Europe to do much of the work for them. But nonetheless, this is the story that German soldiers are being told. And that basically any humanitarian act, like feeding the conquered people of the territory that you're in, this is not soldierly conduct, and it has to stop. So again, what Rickenau is trying to do is extinguish any kind of humanitarian feeling that the German soldiers have, not only for the folks that are Jewish or communists. Of course, for him, they were the same thing, but just for the natives of this area as well. That these are subject people, and that all the army, if you're being humane, you're actually working against the German effort. You're not being an avenger in this war of ideologies in which no quarter is asked and none is given. So a couple, and then to drop to the bottom, the soldier has to fulfill two tasks: complete annihilation of the false Bolshevikstic, I can't say it, Bolshevikstic, that's not very good, doctrine of the Soviet state and its armed forces, the pitiless extermination of foreign treachery and cruelty, and thus the protection of the lives of military and personnel in Russia. This is the only way to fulfill our historic task to liberate the German people once and forever from the Asiatic Jewish danger. And once again, isn't it interesting that Bolshevik has dropped, but now it's Asiatic. And so Rickenau has even gone beyond before the Bolsheviks now. He's gone back to Attila the Hun, because any German soldier would know what he was talking about when he uses the word Asiatic. The hordes that threatened German during the Middle Ages. He jumps back, although he argues that folks that are Jewish are still a threat. And once again, that German soldiers are avengers. And so this document it's read to German soldiers. It's sent out to other German commanders in the Soviet Union. It's approved by Rundstedt, who is under overall command of the Soviet Army, or I'm sorry, the German Army in the Soviet Union. After the war, Rickenau dies during the war. He's not killed in battle. He has a stroke or something like that, and he's flown back and behind the lines. And anyway, he dies of natural causes, basically natural causes. So he doesn't survive the war. So he never has to face up to this order. But the the German army as a whole embraced Rickenau's vision, and of course, Rickenau's vision comes directly from Hitler. So the Wehrmacht they didn't organize the Eisenstadt group, and the mobile killing units were not part of the German army. That is true. And the German army was involved in the logistics of the concentration camp, but again, they weren't involved in the day-to-day operations of the concentration camps that were later created. But to say that the German army was separate from the atrocities and the brutality of what went on in Nazi-occupied territory, this order shows how completely false that is. And to what extent the German soldiers were being told that they were basically fighting Attila the Hun again, now in the form of folks that were Jewish and Bolshevik, and that they had to be avengers, not just soldiers. They had to be avengers. And of course, what does that mean for their behavior? Well, it means that it basically allows any kind of savage behavior on a part of German soldiers, which the vast majority of German soldiers completely embraced.